Here.
Representative Green.
Present.
Representative Mearman. Representative Beeson.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Representative Colazar moves to approve the minutes from February 22nd, 2024. And without any objection, minutes are approved. So first up for presentation on universal school meals today is Dr. Diane Golzinski from the Michigan Department of Education. Thank you, Dr. Golzinski. The floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. First, on behalf of everyone at the Department of Education and children and parents around the state, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for passing a budget that prioritized children at school, a budget that allows children to be on the same playing field in school cafeterias around the state. For this school year, because of your commitment, every public school academy, and intermediate school district has the ability to offer a free breakfast and lunch to K-12 students, to 4-year-olds who are enrolled in district GSRP programs, and to all special education students up to age 26. For this school year, the Michigan School Meals Program does not cover meals in non-public schools. It is not that we are not able to do so, it is simply a matter of what was allowable by the fiscal year 24 budget language. Meals in the Great Start Readiness Program are still free to all children, but the Michigan School Meals Program is not covering those GSRP meals served through community-based organizations. And just so you know, Section 30D does not cover meals served to teachers or staff, or second meals, incomplete meals that do not meet the requirements of federal reimbursement, or a la carte items. In order to provide free meals to all children, participating public schools must be in the federal school lunch and breakfast programs. They must participate in the community eligibility provision if they qualify. They must collect relevant family income information through the education benefits forms, and they must have written off all outstanding student meal negative balances as of February 2024. Ultimately, the Michigan School Meals Program participation is optional, as some districts were already providing free meals to all students, so there was not a need to sign up for the new state-funded program. As of September 2023, 100% of all public schools that meet these eligibility requirements are offering free meals to all of their students. So what does that look like? So far this year, Michigan has doubled the number of school buildings serving free meals to all, serving over 1.3 million children. This directly supports Goal 3 of Michigan's State Strategic Education Plan to improve the health, safety, and wellness of all learners. It also supports Goal 2 to improve early literacy, Goal 5, increasing the percentage of students who graduate from high school, and Goal 8, providing adequate and equitable school funding. There has been a 23% increase in breakfasts served and 22% increase in lunches served. This translates to nearly an additional 100,000 students eating breakfast every single day, and an additional 144,000 students eating lunch every single day at school. It's interesting that these increases are not only seen in the districts that were not serving free meals in 22-23, but also there are marked increases in those who were serving free meals through the community eligibility provision. Meals are up across every type of participating district and for all meal types at all levels. This demonstrates that hungry children live in every community across our great state. They exist in every district, in every building, at every grade. And the Michigan School Meals Program removed a significant stigma that faced those children every day up until you and the governor made this very significant change. Through the Michigan School Meals Program, there has been a 50% increase in federal commodity and reimbursement dollars. Federal commodity dollars help school districts stretch their budgets in order to provide the healthiest yet most economical meal possible. To our dismay, our districts have run out of these commodity dollars for this current school year. At the national level, the funding amount for federal commodity dollars is based on the previous school year's participation. And as you now know, participation in 22-23 was significantly lower than the year before that, and significantly lower than what we are seeing this year. So it will take a full year for the commodity dollars to catch up with the current increases in student participation. This means that districts will be spending more of their school meals reimbursement dollars on purchasing food than what they would normally have done at this point in the year. A total of over $110 million has been provided in state reimbursement as the last dollar provided. Federal dollars step in first, followed by the state mandate investments through sections 31F and 31D. It's important to note that it will take a full year also for 31D and 31F reconciliations to happen because those are also based on the previous school year. So while these increases are far more than what was anticipated and what we had projected, it is exciting to report that the greatest increases have been seen at breakfast at the middle school and high school levels. Anecdotally, we are hearing that the stigma of eating at school has been removed. Hungry students are now simply able to choose to eat because they are hungry and not because of any amount of dollars in their school lunch account. It is estimated that this program is saving families approximately $850 each year. Even with this great news, it hasn't been without some struggles. To put it bluntly, there is an issue with students not having enough time to eat. In many districts, students have 20 minutes from bell to bell. That means the bell rings, they leave class, they find their way to the cafeteria, they stand in line, they eat, they clean up, and then they have to get back to their next class, all within 20 minutes. With all meals served for free, that means that the cafeteria lines are longer and it takes more time to get through those lines. The longer the time in line, the less time there is to eat, and the more of the meal that ends up in the trash simply because there is not enough time to eat. Staffing is another major concern. Like most industries today, school food service is struggling to find the human capital needed to serve the additional meals that students are requesting. With limited staffing and limited time to eat, one thing we are also seeing in some districts is a reduction in meal quality, not due to a lack of desire to serve high-quality meals, but rather due to a lack of staff and the need to serve meals that children can eat quickly. Meals are still meeting the minimum required nutrition standards, but food service directors are reporting that they must resort to more packaged foods or prepackaged foods in an effort to keep up with the growing demand. Complicating all of this is the fact that the funding was listed in the FY24 budget as one-time funding. There were administrators that were not willing to add school food service staff or to change their food service methods in order to accommodate the additional meals served, simply due to the perceived lack of funding stability. Finally, the collection of family income data is now more complicated than ever. As long as we have programs that are designed to address children in poverty, which we believe is a critical way of achieving funding, equity, and equality, but every time we create a new program, we will need to have some way of collecting that information from families in order to properly categorize those children who are eligible for those additional programs. Finally, the department is closely monitoring those participation rates and how they impact the reimbursement provided. We are reporting those numbers monthly to the state budget office in order to monitor the allocation that was provided in the FY24 budget. With the continuation of Michigan School Meals, we will also be watching attendance rates and standardized test scores. In the long term, we will also be watching graduation rates. If we expect the research to hold up here in Michigan, we should see increases in all of those critically important metrics. All of the work that our department is doing to support students in school, with your support and the support of the governor, including the Michigan School Meals Program, we believe that we will have a critical, lasting impact on children in school. This work has the potential to change an entire generation. Thank you for helping to make that happen. And I'm happy to answer whatever questions you may have.
Thank you for your presentation. Members have any questions? Representative Price?
Do you know the average cost of meals per student per day?
It's going to vary based on district and the food that they are purchasing. So what I can tell you is that we're reimbursing at the federal rates, but the average cost is going to vary based on every district, and we don't gather that at the department.
So in the point of concern about the quality of meals, is that something that they're determining we're reimbursing them for what they are spending, or is that where we need to consider additional appropriation to increase the quality of the meals?
So reimbursement is based on what the federal government decides is the reimbursement rate for a free meal or a paid meal. Whatever the district spends is up to the district's discretion. We had some districts with fund balances, so they spend more because they had more in their account. We had some who didn't, and so they are not able to spend as much. But it's all the same reimbursement level, no matter what district you're in.
Thank you.
Representative Colazar?
Thank you, and thank you for being here. I appreciate you outlining some of the problems as well. I know I've gotten a lot of feedback in my district, not just from economically disadvantaged families, but middle-class families who say, you know, I've got a third grader, a kindergartner, and a baby, and not have to worry about preparing those meals. And saving that money on those meals while I've got the infant is a big deal. So my question, though, does go back to those challenges. It sounds like staffing is at the root of just about everyone you mentioned. Is if we are able to make strides and get our schools staffed up to where we'd be at a good level, I guess my question would be, how many of those concerns that you listed would be at least minimized?
I would think nearly all of them. We would, if we could take care of time to eat and have enough staff, then we would not have the trash issue, we would not have the quality issue, we'd be able to do more scratch cooking, we'd be able to put more into what we're providing to those kids in a way that they could eat it. It's just a matter of human capital at this point. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Representative Beeson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just had the Bay City Academy, thanks for this Bay City Academy here, my ninth graders from, and they actually said my tour of the state capitol, I gave them 3 hours, was better than Mackinac Island. So I was really happy with that. But the one thing they actually said, and I did get pizza for them, and they said, one of the kids said, you know, that's the only problem with our free meal problem is we get the exact same amount of pizza that the first graders, the fifth graders, and the ninth graders, they get the exact same amount. So I'm checking into that at home. But they said, when I'm ordering pizzas, I was like, and my LD is Bob, I'm like, Bob, you better get 4 more pizzas because I don't want nobody not to get 2 pieces of slice. And they had a concern that kind of concerns me that a ninth grader gets the exact same amount of food as a fourth grader in our area. So is there a way that we can maybe look at the funding for our adults because they eat a little bit more? I mean, difference between my 18-year-old senior and my freshman, they don't eat the same. Is there any way to fund it for kids that do require? Is there a spot in our program that says, hey, we need some more funding based on the amount of food they eat, or is it just per pupil?
So the meals are based on the federal meal standards, which has set calorie, sodium, portion size limits by grade. So there's a high school meal pattern, there's an elementary meal pattern, which would be different from each other. Where the big difference would come in for a child is their ability to take, if they took all 5 components, they would have more food than if they only took 3. And at the high school level, you can choose to take 3, and it's considered to be a full meal versus the 5. So an elementary student would get all 5 if they're not offer versus serve. A high school student would be able to take 3 and it still be considered reimbursable. So let me give you an example. Pizza and a milk could be a reimbursable meal at the high school level. They could also take a fruit, a vegetable, and probably another grain, like a roll or something, and have more food and it still be the same free meal. Oftentimes, what we're seeing at the high school level is it's the students not choosing the full meal versus what's all available to
Yeah,
them.
they just want 2 slices of pizza. It's pretty easy.
Right, the second slice of pizza would be considered à la carte, and we're not covering à la carte with the program.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Representative Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. And I think a quick question here is the time to eat question. I mean, it's been a while since I've been in high school, but I don't remember having only 20 minutes. That seems like an easily solvable. But one, how in the world did we have 20 minutes even before this program as enough time to eat? It just doesn't seem like enough time to eat. But it also seems solvable. Just give kids more time. If you really only have 20 minutes in the entire academic day, I don't even know how to ask this question.
So you and I would struggle with 20 minutes, right? It is not a new phenomenon. It has been something that has been an issue for school food service for a number of years. And it does vary based on district. So my daughter's high school gets 26 minutes versus others that often only get 20. And what it really boils down to is you have to extend the length of the school day in order to give more time, because for so long we did not consider the meal program to be a part of the academic day. It was just an add-on, something that had to be done because state law said you had to do it. And so the very minimum was provided. What would have to happen in a number of districts in order to change it is to change union contracts, change the ability to extend your day in order to have more time. What districts are doing to accommodate is they're starting lunch earlier and extending lunch later, adding more lunch periods because their cafeteria wasn't built to hold this number of kids. It was built on a projection of only serving 25% of the kids, for example, and now they're serving 60 or 70%, so they've had to add. We have some districts serving lunch as early as 10 a.m. and going all the way until 2 p.m.
That was something like I had in school. We had a gym and cafetorium in Pinconning, Michigan, and it was all in one.
All in one.
But I guess I'm just so curious, were kids just not eating before then? Like, how did they?
Kids weren't eating. If they were hungry, they weren't necessarily eating. It could be that they didn't want their friends to know that they would accept, that they were accepting free meals. Their friends weren't eating, so they weren't going to eat, because you might remember middle school, if you're going to do whatever your friends are doing, right? Now that everyone's on the same playing field, they literally choose to eat if they're hungry or not, and then all of their friends say, oh, well, you know, I'm kind of hungry too, which makes the lines longer, and the longer the line, the longer it takes to get into the cafeteria to have time to even eat. So that time to eat becomes even more critical. My pleasure.
Thank you. Representative Skaggs.
Thank you, Chair. Last time we had this conversation, and forgive me for not following through to the end, but we had a discussion about vegetarian and vegan meals and specialty diets that others might have. Were we able to ensure that those sorts of meals were available to students under this program?
We are working through that with every district, yes. So we strongly recommend it. We push every district to include an option for a student to have a choice, and what we're seeing is that it's happening. We are out visiting schools now. We have a team of people who are out visiting schools and trying to assure that that's happening. Yes.
Great. I would love to follow up on some
Right.
more on that after. Thanks.
Thank you. Representative DeBoer.
Do kids have then 20 minutes for breakfast and 20 minutes for lunch? Did they take the lunch hour and split it to do breakfast, or you don't know?
Breakfast is often different. If it's before school, it might be 15 minutes before the bell rings. If it's during school, so we have the ability to offer breakfast during school, which means that we can count it as instructional time. So the teachers are collecting homework assignments, taking attendance, doing morning work, and the kids are allowed to eat during that time. But breakfast often is not nearly as long as lunch.
I talked to a nutritionist recently who works with children, and she said things like scurvy and beriberi are coming back
Nutritional
in
deficiency.
children's. Yeah. I mean, things you thought only Columbus and his crew experienced, but
Right? Oh.
yeah, definitely a problem.
Thank you. I have a few questions as well. Another getting to the points of concern that you have, when we talk about the quality of meals, and you mentioned wanting to have the ability for districts to move more to like actually cooking meals from scratch. My understanding is there is also some facility issues there, because a
Yes.
lot of school facilities move to like a heat and serve model and don't necessarily have the kitchen capabilities to be able to do scratch cooking. And do you have any sense of how widespread that issue is, and if there would need to be additional facility support, both for the meal preparation and maybe also for, to help with the serving of the meals, to the point of Vice Chair Morgan about the gym / cafeteria / auditorium / whatever space that a lot of districts are working with?
Yeah, it's absolutely an issue. To put a percentage on how many districts on it, I wouldn't be able to do that off the top of my head. But I can tell you, the older the building, the less likely it is that they have the physical space to do the type of cooking that we're looking for in order to improve meal quality. So if I look at some of the school buildings in Detroit Public Schools for Community District, for example, their kitchen space where they can prep their meals is a tenth of what we have here in this room. And they're trying to prepare meals for hundreds of kids
Right.
in that small amount of space. So what they're doing is they're spilling out into hallways, and they're taking over closets, and they're out in the cafeteria actually assembling meals because of space issues. With the additional meals, we also don't have enough space for storage, refrigerated storage, dry storage, frozen storage. Meals have to come in, or food has to be delivered more often, which increases delivery costs, which increases staff needing to unload the trucks. It's just compounded with the additional meals served.
Yeah, and that's something that I had seen when, in my time as a teacher, and, you know, to your point of not having that scratch space, and a lot of our students would be served for breakfast like Pop-Tarts, or they would get a prepackaged in shrink wrap peanut butter and jelly sandwich instead of just like a regular peanut butter
Yeah.
and jelly sandwich, because that's what they had the time to be able to do, or a shrink wrapped burrito, because that's what they had the time
Correct.
to be able to do.
Time or facility.
And we would also see a lot of waste with that. So I taught in a district that already had, was full free and reduced lunch for the district. So every kid already got a meal, and we would see a lot of waste, a lot of kids, because of not having the à la carte option, a lot of food being thrown out, milk being thrown out. If we were to be able to move to more offering à la carte options, would we be at risk of being in violation of some of those federal standards and potentially losing out on federal funds?
Yeah. À la carte is not covered by federal reimbursement at all.
Okay,
Previously, à la carte was only covered by what the child was able to pay for. And so that would be all funds lost if we offered à la carte items for free. There would be no way of drawing federal dollars for that. It would only be state dollars covering that.
okay. And then also, talking a little bit more about that, funding for the issue around, now that we're at now we're offering universal meals, we're having issues, and I've heard it from districts already, of students' parents actually filling out those free and reduced forms, and impacts that could have on funding overall. Does the department, is there anything that we can do at the state level to address that issue, or is that really a federal concern? that we need kids to fill out this specific form to be able to qualify for those funds.
It's a both and. So the forms were designed 40 years ago to be able to get at family income level. And then as additional programs were designed, we're using that as our proxy to determine which students qualify for which programs, right? And so it's been 40 years of tradition to do that. What I was just talking with the state director in Massachusetts this weekend, and what Massachusetts has is they have a state law that says you can only use direct certification numbers to determine which students qualify. And we have discussed that here at the state level. Is that a possibility for Michigan? What we know is there will be some districts who it doesn't faze them. Their numbers will all stay the same. The students will all stay the same. There are others who would be harmed in that format because they get their numbers primarily from those applications. And that's what we would miss out on. What we would miss out on are the families who have very real, in-the-moment changes. The plant closed down yesterday, and now I don't have a job. So in the past, before this program, they would fill out an application, and those children would be eligible for free meals in the middle of a school year. Direct certification is pulled at regular points through the school year, but it's not as immediate as what the applications are. So it is not something we are not looking at. We're working with a researcher at MSU trying to figure out if there's a way we can layer direct certification with some other options. In the event that a form isn't returned, we renamed the form to call them educational benefits forms rather than meals forms, hoping that that would help families see that this is far more than meals as to why they would need to fill it out. But the reality is we did have a fewer number of forms returned this year, even with all of our efforts to try to communicate it to the world.
Thank you. I think, with this program, obviously, we know and we've heard, and we knew when we were doing it, it would have immense benefit for kids across our state, but we also want to make sure we're doing everything that we can to minimize some of those unintended consequences and to try to improve the program as we go. So appreciate your work on that.
Thank you.
All right. Without any further questions, thank you for your time and thank you for your presentation. Next up to present, we have Lori Adkins from Oakland Schools. If you could come on up. She's a child nutrition consultant from Oakland Schools. Oh, and sorry, is on Zoom. So thank you for presenting today.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Good morning, Chair Weiss and members of the House School Aid Education Subcommittee. I appreciate the opportunity to join you today to discuss the impact that Michigan School Meals Program is having this year for the over 160,000 students in classrooms across Oakland County. My name is Lori Adkins. I'm a child nutrition professional and advocate for Michigan School Meals, and I work as the child nutrition consultant here at Oakland Schools. Along with my testimony today, I've shared with the committee a comparison data spreadsheet that outlines our enrollment, participation, and eligibility trends for school meal programs in Oakland County pre and post Michigan School Meals. So October 2022 data compared to October 2023 data. And the raw data for the spreadsheet was obtained from the Michigan Department of Education's Office of Nutrition Services. So I'm happy to report that Michigan School Meals Program has been a great success here in Oakland County, where school meals play a critical role in eliminating hunger as a barrier to learning in the classroom. In Oakland County alone, schools today are serving 20,000 more breakfast meals per day than we did in October of 22. So that's a 116% increase in breakfast participation. Also, our schools are serving 27,000 more lunch meals per day than we did in October of 22, and that's a 47% increase. Now, as a percentage of enrollment, the Oakland County free eligibility rate is at 38%, which is up about 4% from last year, and the reduced eligibility rate for our county is 1.6%. And the data also shows that as a percentage of enrollment, just like Dr. Galzinski reported earlier, the total number of all meals served has increased across the board in every district in Oakland County, while student enrollment has stayed, for our county, has stayed pretty much flat year over year. So one of the most significant impacts that Michigan School Meals has been on school breakfast access and participation. So as a mandatory component of the Michigan School Meals program, all school districts and buildings now serve breakfast, which has led to the implementation of new programs in some buildings that had never offered breakfast before. So as a result, school breakfast average daily participation, or ADP, is the highest in the history of Oakland County. In an effort to implement new breakfast programs, many districts have adopted innovative service models, such as breakfast in the classroom. In the Troy School District, they are having students pick up their meals at grab-and-go stations and then consume them in the classroom. Some districts have hallway breakfast kiosks that have been set up at high schools in Waterford and Clarenceville school districts where students easily access meals as they enter the building. And some districts are doing second chance breakfast, like at Walled Lake and Huron Valley schools and middle schools, where students that have missed the bus or late because of a doctor appointment are sent down to the cafeteria to pick up a meal once they get to school. So these approaches have resulted in a remarkable increase in participation by equitably reaching students where they are in the morning, in the hallway, in the classroom, or in the cafeteria with a healthy meal to start their day. Now, prior to the pandemic in 2018, Oakland schools collaborated with the United Way of Southeast Michigan and the Oakland County Board of Commissioners to launch the Oakland County Better with Breakfast program. This was a universal breakfast initiative specifically targeted for high-need areas that struggled with low participation rates. So the program provided funding for new equipment. It helped cover the cost of both reduced and paid category students, thus making it a universal free program. This was the first of its kind in Oakland County and in the state, and that was in 2018. Then fast forward to March of 2023, the Oakland County government joined forces with the Oakland schools to introduce the elimination of financial burden of reduced price meals initiative, and that ran from March to June of last year. So this partnership really helped to aim to eradicate reduced price meal fees and reduced price meal debt, while simultaneously addressing the challenge of school meal stigma. So I mention these because both initiatives, although interrupted by the pandemic or having since expired, proved to be successful demonstration pilots in showcasing the benefits of universal meal programming. So that's why we in Oakland County are so pleased that Michigan School Meals has provided a new and potentially sustainable path forward across the entire state in providing universal and healthy breakfast and lunch meals to all students every day. So while the Michigan School Meals program has been a great success this year, it hasn't come without challenges. And a lot of the challenges echo the challenges that Dr. Golzinski mentioned earlier. Staffing continues to be a top challenge for nearly all school district programs this year. Now, most school districts are serving more meals with fewer staff each day. So fewer staff or the same staff levels as last year, but we're serving more meals. So the addition of new breakfast programs and the increased number of lunch meals served has required extra work hours for staff for food prep and meal service time. And that's why service efficiency has become of paramount importance. So to ensure students get through the line efficiently, quickly, to eat within their designated time, like we said, a lot of high schools have a 20-minute lunch period. Elementary is very similar. And some districts, so as a result, have added additional lunch hours, or they've overlapped lunch hours to try to even out the lunch lines there. Other schools have also allowed students to pick up meals in the cafeteria and then return to their classroom to finish or to consume their meal. This has provided students with a little bit more time to eat and less time in the queue. And also, with less labor, many districts right now are simply focused on meal service only. A la carte sales have been discontinued, not all, but in many districts, simply because they don't have the staff to sell it. So another challenge has been increased food and supply costs for programs. Districts are reporting that food and supply costs have increased 25 to 40% over the last couple of years. And while some food costs have decreased, like the cost of eggs has come down, but a lot of other food items have been slower to come down in cost and remain high. And in addition, school operators across the nation, including Oakland County, have received fewer federal USDA food dollars this year. We had a temporary bump in entitlement rates the prior year, but this year's rates were calculated against fewer lunch meals that were served this year, or served last year in 22-23. And this has resulted in fewer commodity entitlement dollars available for Oakland County food service administrators to use at a time where we're serving more lunches than ever. So the higher USDA food dollars will catch up with us next year because we're serving way more meals this year. So that will be multiplied against a newer supply cost piece, and we'll receive higher USDA food dollars next year. But this year, those dollars are fewer. So some good news this year is that the pandemic era supply chain issues have been largely resolved for a lot of food and supply items. So this year, our fill rates by our broadline distributors and by manufacturers are in the high 90th percentile, which means they're filling those orders up to 98 to sometimes 100% on average. However, we're still having trouble with the turnaround time on large items like equipment, milk coolers and ovens, things like that. There's sometimes a 6 to 8 week wait for larger equipment items due to stainless steel and other materials required for that equipment. So, and I did want to mention one of the earlier challenges to Michigan school meals was the collection of the educational benefit forms from students by the district. So students, as you know, are automatically qualified for the Michigan School Meals program, yet school districts are tasked with coding each student in their system by their eligibility status as free, reduced, or paid. So for the purpose of meal cleaning and reimbursement. So the educational benefit form is also used to determine student eligibility for other benefits, like the new summer EBT program. And then, of course, the school district uses the EBT form educational benefit form for determining the number of economically disadvantaged students in the school district, which impacts their E-rate and some of their funding and grants. So these educational benefit forms are important for all stakeholders, for us to know who's free, who's reduced, and who's paid. But again, the form submission was low in some districts this year. Also, at the start of the year, food service administrators partnered with MDE to promote the new Michigan School Meals program. So MDE did an excellent job helping get the word out by providing branding logo, FAQ sheets, and information for parents and administrators that we could push out to parents to help explain and promote the program. I believe that these early efforts, the early partnership with MDE really helped to pay off by helping to spur an early awareness of the program and strong participation. Because it's amazing to me that even CEP districts who've been providing meals to kids at no cost for many years, even those schools have experienced higher participation. And again, I think it's because the awareness of our meal programs and kids seeing other kids eating every day has helped to spur a stronger culture of school meals for breakfast and lunch in our districts. So lastly, this morning, I'd like to share a brief video with you, which features some Oakland County students, food service directors, and a parent who share in their own words about the impact that Michigan School Meals has had on this school year in their school experience. So if we could have somebody from the tech team cue up the video. Thank you very much.
Good, how are you? Did you grab your fruit? Let's take a fruit. Nolan, you grab a breakfast?
So this year, Michigan is leading the way by providing free breakfast and lunch meals to all K-12 public school students across our state. And it's been really exciting to see because participation is up and more families are relying on school meals now than ever before.
The Michigan School Meals started this year for Southland schools. It's really changed how we service our students. We went from probably serving 20% at breakfast, now up to probably 45 to 50 in some of our schools, and same way we went for lunch. You know, it's great to see all these kids coming through.
Our school meals are very important for the children that we serve every day because they may not get meals at home, and this fuels their brain. It helps them in the classroom, it helps them get better test scores, and it really truly helps them with better behavior, and it helps them build relationships with other kids and our staff.
I just really like having lunch here because all the food is so fresh and stuff here. Is very much so helps me with focusing in class and getting full, so I don't have to be like, can I go get a snack or something? So I can just stay full through their day.
I think the breakfast and lunches are good for the students, like at school, because how convenient they are to just like after class you go to lunch, you get your food, and then you like recharge for the rest of the day.
I like eating breakfast at school because I like to eat well. I do my morning work at class.
School meals are very healthy. They include lean protein, low-fat dairy, lots of whole grains, and lots of fruits and vegetable choices every day.
We take pride in our dining experience because we offer a variety of food to all of our students. We offer things like fresh salads to go, parfaits. They love anything chicken, anything soups. They love our soups.
Families themselves, they're under the impression of how it was when they were in school and not what it was like today. And I think many families are surprised when they do come into our school buildings, all the options that are out there.
Most of the time I'll get a fruit that they provide as well as the main meal.
My favorite part of eating at school is all the choices and options that you can pick from.
I really enjoy the subs every single day, the pastrami, the provolone, the lettuce. It tastes fresh, it tastes organic, it tastes very good.
Getting 3 kids ready for elementary school and our 4th for middle school, packing lunches is sometimes the last thing we do in the morning, the afterthought of scooping the food into the lunchbox. My kids love seeing the options that we have here at school, and for my wife and I, it helps financially.
The Michigan School Meals program provides more meals than any restaurant chain across Oakland County, keeping our kids well-fed and healthy. That's why providing meals to students at no cost is so important.
Call your doorbell camera company and cancel the subscription. This brand new subscription. Making typical doorbell cameras totally
Apologies to the public for that unsolicited ad in our committee hearing. Thank you, Dr. Atkins, and thank you for that video and for everyone who participated in that from Oakland schools. Do any of the committee members have questions? If not, I have a question. I was just curious, we talked a little bit about, with the last presentation, about some of the challenges that a lot of the districts face in terms of quality of food. The school that you just showcased in that video, it seemed like they had excellent quality food, which was really wonderful to see. And I've seen that in some districts across the state, but we know the disparity there is real because I've also seen the other side of it. Can you talk a little bit about how that district was able to do that? And if there are things that we can do or think about at the state level to be able to reduce barriers on districts to make it so that every district in the state is able to provide a similar quality of food and food choices to students?
Well, I think we've made significant progress in Oakland County towards eliminating hunger and providing access to healthy meals across the board. I understand where you're coming from with the disparities. Some districts have more labor, but they all have access to the same fruits and vegetables and main meal items that most districts kind of all serve the same thing. You know, we have salads that are available, sandwiches, pizza. A lot of the center of the plate items are similar, but the fruits and vegetables do take some time to prep and to provide the variety to the kids, to cut oranges instead of having them whole, to have apple slices instead of having them whole. Those are the kinds of things that help encourage consumption, and they look nice on the line as well. And of course, some of the foods that you've seen in the video are seasonal, like we added strawberries, they added strawberries to the orange cups. But a lot of that, again, it goes back to labor. Do you have the labor to get things cut up, portioned out, and accessible to kids? But as far as the variety goes, all the purchasing cooperatives offer the same fresh fruits and vegetables through their DoD Fresh program. And many districts, it just takes, the effort to have it out and available to students. And I'm seeing a lot of that happening across our county.
Thank you. You also mentioned, you talked about some of the new ways in which districts are kind of coping with the increased demand. And you talked about like having kiosks in the hallway and allowing students to eat in the classroom. Thinking from a teacher perspective, there may be other issues that, that come along with that.
Sure.
But obviously, different districts have different needs, district to district, building to building. But it sounds like some districts are doing a really good job with that. Is there an effort to share some of those best practices, both within Oakland County and then beyond as well?
Yes, in fact, we just had our Oakland County Directors meeting this morning. It's happening right now, and that was our topic this morning, was sharing best practices on breakfast and implementing ways to get students through the lunch line quickly as well. So folks shared that they really attack this at a building level. They work with the building principals, they take a look at the structure of the building and what would work best by building, and they work directly with the principal, because you really need to have administrative buy-in for the meal programs to become more part of the school culture and more part of the school day, the instructional day, instead of just an extra, part of the day. So we're seeing the districts encourage students to pick up their meals and do kind of a hybrid system, pick up meals in the cafeteria and then go back to the classroom, and that lightens the load of the line and helps the queue go a little quicker. Some high schools, again, they're overlapping their lunch hours, allowing kids to go down a little earlier to get their meals. So I think, just working together, thinking collaboratively and creatively, just to how to get the line speed down, really helps ensure that all kids have access and have time to eat, because that's important.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your presentation, and thank you for joining us today. Next up, also on Zoom, we have Zach Sedgwick and Chris Collins from Marquette Area Public Schools to present as well.
Okay, thank you. I was muted there and unable to unmute for a moment. So appreciate Rep. Weiss committee having us today. I'm going to bring a unique perspective and perhaps take a different angle. I think you've had a lot of data provided already. Mr. Collins, our food service director, can certainly provide some data for Marquette Area Public Schools, but I'll speak as a practitioner that's been in this business for about 20 years at all three levels. I started as a teacher at the high school level, was an administrator at the middle school, elementary school, was a elementary principal during COVID, saw the impact of how, I guess if you think of it through the lens of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the impact of how those basic needs not being met. Certainly the program, the school meals program is one where you would look at that, that most fundamental level of Maslow's triangle pyramid, where if those needs aren't being met, that's going to be the focus of our students. Much like during COVID and safety, where when safety is something that's not truly a need that's not truly being met, that's going to be the focus before you can move up into those higher levels where kids can actually focus on school and be successful. Certainly the impact of the program, 51% increase in school meals is phenomenal. Again, as a practitioner, I'm responsible for 3,200 kids and 750,000 square foot of buildings, a very large footprint as far as the area that we cover in a rural district in the UP. The elements that we deal with in Marquette is obviously somewhat unique. We have much different demographics and much different challenges than you would get in more urban districts or more concentrated districts. So I can bring a unique perspective from that front and can certainly speak to detail, but I will say thank you for providing the free meals. Obviously, when we address the nutritional needs of students, we see better focus, we see better attendance, we see better behavior, and overall better success from our kids, and I can attest to that. But again, with us, we're going to be able to bring you a unique perspective in that, yes, 3,200 students is a lot for the UP. But when you think about us compared to larger districts, and you think about the number of responsibilities that the burden of responsibilities that we have with a $40 million budget and all those competing priorities, it's a lot. Just as a first example, I'm the same person that gets up at 3 a.m. and drives roads to determine whether or not we cancel school and take the lead on facility projects, while also managing the budget, 430 staff, the facilities, the programming, et cetera. Same with Mr. Collins, who you'll hear from. He manages the food service, the budget. He manages the food ordering. He manages the staff. We have 7 different buildings with kids. So from his main hub at the high school, he's delivering meals to all 7 buildings, and he's in charge of the staff for all 7 buildings, along with the budget. And oftentimes is the same guy filling in for in the kitchen because we don't have enough staff. And that's a real problem. So I'm here to say that this is a great program and we're very grateful for it. I hope we can continue the program. We've seen a positive impact, so I certainly want to celebrate, but again, can maybe bring a unique perspective since we wear a lot of different hats in a district our size. But I want to turn it over to Mr. Collins before we entertain questions. You're good.
Okay, so
Sorry, you got remuted there. We could unmute Chris, please. You should be good now.
okay. So when we're looking at our meal comparison, meals sold in school year 2022 to 2023, September through January, we had sold 134,005 meals. When we look at this past school year in 23-24 through the same time period, September through January, we had sold 202,893 meals. So we're breaking it down between breakfast and lunch, and what we're seeing at breakfast is an increase of just under 31,000 meals at 30,946 meals. And we've had an increase in lunch of 37,942 meals. This gives us a total increase in our meal sales of 68,888 meals just from September through January. So when we look at our sales mix, what percent of our students are considered free, reduced, or full pay? how they are taking advantage of this program. 32% of our students have qualified at the free rate. 2% of our students have qualified at reduced, and about 66% of our students did not qualify for free or reduced, so they would be considered full pay. So this impacts the families quite a bit on the financial burden for families. Just in school year 22-23, families had accrued a total of $24,538 owed to the schools for meals. And, you know, there's a lot of families that could qualify for or were on the border for free meals, but they just didn't get there. So, you know, we're in a dilemma of, you know, we want to feed the students, but maybe the families have a hard time paying for that meal. So the financial burden on families right now is relieved, and I think it's helping tremendously. Just some outcomes that I think we're seeing. You know, we've talked about the decreased stigma on the students coming through breakfast and lunch. What we're seeing are students just coming through and getting a meal. No one making any mention of income levels or anything else. So students are just getting a meal because they're hungry and they need something to start their day or in the middle of their day, which is great. Also, what we're seeing is that the students have access, increased access to the meals in the school meal program, which is great as well. So that's about the extent of the information I have.
Great, thank you both so much. Are there any questions from the committee? Representative Price.
Thank you for providing testimony today. My question is, do you see impacts in the classroom behavior in relationships with teachers, other students, and how behavior within the school
Gladly
culture
entertain
classroom?
questions if the committee has any for us.
Apologies, can you not hear us? We could have tech support if they're available. Is there someone here that could help with that? What was
We're
that?
remote enough that we actually use carrier pigeons at times.
Sorry, everyone. All right. We're going to try that again. Are you able to hear us? If not, we can maybe follow up with written questions. Okay. Last time, since you're back on screen. Zach, are you able to hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Apologies. Representative Price did ask a question, so I'll have her repeat her question.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and going with the flow, as we've learned to do. Wondering about the impacts on the classroom environment and school culture on breakfasts and lunches. Do you see any changes in terms of connecting with teachers, other students, behaviors within the school culture?
I think anytime you can level the playing field, you're going to see better human-to-human interaction. The stigma that we've heard multiple times is real. Again, it's not just because of your socioeconomic status that you might get a little nervous about whether or not you're going to get a meal. A lot of our families in this region are subject. There's a lot of variables that go into play as far as whether or not they can afford a nutritional meal for their kids. And maybe it's not just money, maybe it's time, but middle-class families that could be making upwards of $100,000 in this region and our economic climate up here, it can actually be a struggle because of some unique aspects of living in such a remote location. Access to programming, access to nutritional meals can be a challenge. So yes, always, whenever you remove barriers, again, I talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Anytime you're removing barriers that relate to their physiological needs, their feelings of safety, and then you get up the triangle, you're going to see better social emotional behavior. You're going to see better interactions. And overall, the trend is positive. I don't have the hard data in front of you, but having been in every level of this district and having gone through COVID and seeing the amount of trauma that comes to our school every day, the number of kids with trauma, you remove any one of those barriers that's impacting that student's ability or inability to be successful, you're going to see positive trends. And I think we're trending in the right direction. When you do look at our data, academic data, attendance data, et cetera, you're seeing positive trends. Are we at where we were previously? Probably not. The pandemic really did do a number on Marquette area public schools, as it did all school districts, but it's a significant step in the right direction. And again, leveling the playing fields, removing the stigma so that these kids aren't thinking about what makes them different. They're thinking about what makes them the same. And in this climate, very charged, divisive type climate that we live in public education, that's a real big deal. So anyway, I hope that helps answer your question, but I do feel it's had a positive impact, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. I had a question, kind of follow up from an earlier question that Representative Skaggs had asked around dietary restrictions. We had a discussion about this when we were implementing this meals program last year. Concerns around students with special dietary needs, whether that be kids who, for religious reasons, maybe keep kosher or halal, or kids who choose to be vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free, or kids who have allergies or other issues that might prevent them from having access to whatever everyone else is eating. Can you talk about in your area what you've seen, if local districts are adapting to that, and what some of the challenges have been in making sure that we're meeting the needs of every individual student when it comes to meals?
Right. Everything is becoming more complex. When you think about, I'm just going to use 504s as an example, the amount of nuance that you see in these 504s and certainly dietary restrictions include, I mean, full disclosure, we're a somewhat homogeneous city, town, region, and we don't necessarily see maybe religious restrictions, but dietary restrictions are certainly prevalent. One nice thing about being such a close-knit community, we're very flexible and we find ways to overcome challenges. And I've been in the lunchrooms, you see the nut allergy tables, you have relationships with these kids where our guidance counselors, our food service staff are well aware of what those dietary restrictions are. They're making exceptions, and not necessarily always through policy, but through practice. And I'm just going to let Mr. Collins chime in here. Please tell your tech people they don't have to actually mute me and unmute Chris. He can talk through my mic. Maybe that'll help with the tech difficulties, but I'm going to let Mr. Collins chime in on that question.
So we approach the allergy issue on different levels. Obviously, at the elementary level, students just need to be kept safe with the dietary restrictions. So we write an entirely separate menu for our allergy students. Now, when it comes to specific food preferences, we communicate with families. Perhaps it's a family doesn't want to have their child have pork. So we make sure that we bring in turkey pepperoni on pizza day. So we make sure that it meets that requirement for the students. And then here at the high school, one of the things we do for preferences, we have fruit yogurt parfaits every day available. We make chef salads. We make sure that, we have a protein on there, whether it could be sunflower seeds or shredded cheese. We always have a salad bar available as well. So if a student just takes the 3 items and offer versus serve, we do have other offerings where the student can have a nice salad that they can have with their meal as well. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, so it sounds like for students who may be like vegetarian or gluten-free or vegan, they would do like the salad bar option and kind of pick and choose their toppings. Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Great. Are there any other questions? All right, well, thank you so much. Appreciate you being on Zoom here and sharing what's going on in Marquette. Without any other questions or concerns from committees, without any other business before the committee, Do we have absent members? We have no absent members. We have no absent members. And so without any further business, committee is adjourned.